TV1 රැස්වීදෙන ජීවිතේ.
Gum Mather came across the old Kautaputta village in Hinguragoda in 2020 when traversing from door to door. By then, clean drinking water was a luxury to 600 families. Kidney patients were on the rise with a water purification system insufficient to meet their demands. Gum Mather came forth once more to alleviate their woes. Gum Mather, for the people, by the people.
Newsfirst Newsline with Prof.
A very good evening to you and a warm welcome to Newsline Zoom, especially with the growing numbers of people testing positive for COVID-19 and increasing concerns, yet more increasing concerns. We thought we'd carry this interview out using Zoom technology. And we've got a very interesting guest who's no stranger to the program. He is the past president of the SLMA, and he is also the General Secretary of the Asia-Pacific Academic Consortium for Public Health. None other than Professor Indika Karunathilake. Very good evening to you, Professor Indika, and welcome on the program.
Yeah, and very good evening to all the viewers as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Now then, what's happening? The numbers are up all of a sudden, but, you know, tourists have started arriving here. The governor of the central bank must be a little bit more pleased than he was without the tourists. You know, we're getting a bit more dollars. But then the numbers have gone up. People are going for long weekends. You know, people are living a normal life. So should we be concerned? Why should we be concerned? And tell us all about the numbers. Are they bad news, good news?
Yeah, correct. The numbers are increasing, and probably the numbers are increasing at an alarming rate. That is what we see in the hospital settings, and also in the services that we carry out or maintain. For example, the 247 patient helpline that is conducted or coordinated by Sri Lanka Medical Association, we have seen increasing number of calls coming, and also new infections coming in. And very important thing that we are seeing is it's spreading very rapidly. Probably the numbers are much more than what is officially reported also. And within families also, it's spreading very fast. For example, if one person is infected, almost invariably all others in the family or the household, they get infected. So it's spreading very fast. One thing we notice is that compared to the past, the symptoms are milder, especially among those who are fully vaccinated, who got the booster, and also who don't have comorbid conditions. So that is something encouraging. But at the same time, there's something alarming also. That's the news coming from the hospitals and the health sector, that ICUs that are allocated for the COVID patients are getting filled, and most of them are basically those who haven't got the vaccination or the booster, and those who are with serious comorbid conditions. So there is good news and bad news at the same time. And you ask why it is serious. Now, even if the symptoms are milder, why it is serious? And if the symptoms and if the percentage who are getting bad or serious is small percentage, why it is serious? The problem is this is spreading very fast. When it is spreading very fast, that will be affecting very large numbers. And even a small percentage will be a large number in that case. And that large number will be maybe more than what our health system can manage. So that is where we need to be concerned.
Professor Indika, how serious is this Omicron variant now? Is this the latest variant? How serious is it?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, based on the available data, I mean, based on the available data, we can assume that in Sri Lanka also it's becoming the dominant variant. That is coming from the latest research from prominent scientists like Prof. Indika Karunathilake and others. So based on that data, it's very likely that it is becoming the dominant variant in Sri Lanka as well as in many countries. Again, based on the evidence and data emerging from other countries and Sri Lanka, it's apparently a milder illness, especially for those who have taken the booster. So there's conclusive evidence on that. But having said that, it's too early to take it lightly. It's too early to take this situation lightly, because one thing is we still don't know much about this variant, and secondly, because of the reason that I have mentioned previously, that even a small percentage would be a large number if the spread is rapid.
Now, Professor Indika, can I take an example? And let's start at home. Myself, I had number 1 and number 2, and just before I could get the booster, I tested positive. I have underlying conditions, and the experience was kind of like a heavy cold, and also a small rash. Now, it was like a heavy cold, so it didn't seem serious to me at the time. Of course, there was a loss of appetite, but that could have been a good thing in my case. So, why should the people, they'll say, oh, well, just going to get a cold. So is this COVID, is it the new common cold?
Again, I think it's too early to basically tag this as a new influenza or new common cold. But having said that, probably what we have experienced is a combination of many factors that would determine your immunity or the protection against the virus. And I suppose the reason that you are fully vaccinated could be one reason that you have experienced the milder illness. I suppose that's the experience that is faced by many during the current situation. Nowadays also, those who have got the fully vaccination, they are getting very mild symptoms. That's the information that we get to our services also. Something like, say, influenza or a flu, like sore throat could be there. That is very common, and maybe a bit of headache and fever that might last maybe 1 or 2 days, and body pains, things like that, rather mild. But that is mainly for those who are fully vaccinated.
So how does the Republic live with this? Our vaccination program is being hailed as being pretty good, and it is. We've had most people, a lot of people anyway, have had, you may want to tell us the figures, but a lot of people have had both the doses, and a fair number are in the process of getting the booster. So how does the general public live with this?
I think there's a lot of role, a very important role that has to be played by the general public. One thing is, very importantly, getting the booster. That's what the data shows. That's what the evidence says, that getting the booster, it will protect you. It will protect you, and probably it will convert this into the mild flu that you were mentioning about. So that's very important, because even right now, even though there's the booster is available, only 36% of the target population have got the booster. So that's something worrying, because a larger percentage has got the first and second dose, but not the booster. This may be the result of some of the myths and misinformation that were spreading very rapidly. But now the science has very strongly, the evidence has very strongly told us that if you get the booster, if you got the booster, you are very much protected and much safer. So I think the first number one responsibility is, if you haven't got the booster, to take it. If you haven't got the booster, take it, because it's available. It's available. It's a matter of going to the nearest MOH office and getting it from there, or the nearest vaccination center. That's the number one responsibility. Secondly, even if you get mild symptoms, don't ignore, because very likely it could be COVID. Very likely it could be COVID. Therefore, if you get influenza like flu-like symptoms like sore throat, then get the medical advice immediately. The services like 247.call, they are always available, and you can call them. It's just a matter of dialing and get the advices. Get the medical advices and stay at home. Stay at home, because if you have got the infection, then even if you don't have much symptoms, still you can spread the disease to others. So if we want to slow down the spread, then if you are infected, we have to stay at home and get medical advices. If necessary, we might have to get admitted and also get tested. Getting tested, that's also very important, because then you know for sure that you have got this disease. Yeah. So the antigen is available. At the moment, there is some shortage of antigen kits, but still I think it's worthwhile getting tested. Because another important thing why it's important to get tested is that at the moment there is dengue. Dengue is also going around. And there is some influenza is also going around. So it's a combination. It's a combination. So if you get flu-like illnesses, it could be any of these. But most likely, if you are exposed, most likely it could be COVID. And fortunately, for all these, what you need to do as citizens, what you need to do is very simple. Get medical advice, get tested, and stay at home. Have very good rest. Resting is very important.
Resting is very important.
Very, very important. Very good rest, good hydration, good nutrition, good ventilation. Those things you can do very simply. And advise or inform others who have been in contact with you, maybe to get tested.
Thank you for that, Professor Indika. But I want to ask you, do you have any statistics, any figures, any information that will suggest as to how far the Omicron variant has spread in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, we can only estimate. As an estimate, we can say that it's very likely that Omicron has become the dominant variant in Sri Lanka. That is going by the symptom profile and how the patients are presenting and comparing with the experience in other countries as well. To say it conclusively with statistics, what you need is a gene sequencing, which is done by the experts at the Sri Javardhanapura University. That's the place that is available in Sri Lanka, to do the gene sequencing to identify this variant definitely. However, the samples that they are getting is comparatively smaller to the number of even officially estimated or officially announced numbers. So because of the smaller number of samples, statistically you can't make a conclusion based on that. But even those numbers were, according to the resources that is coming from that laboratory, more than 90% of the sample that they do sequencing, it is Omicron. So based on that, we can estimate that the Omicron has become the dominant variant.
Professor Indika, do you think Sri Lanka and the world will need to take vaccines forever?
Oh, that's a difficult question to answer.
Describing your love to the love of your life, you know, when you say, we love you forever. So are we going to have jabs forever?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone can say that for sure or conclusively. Now, for example, whether this will become something like influenza in other countries where they take the vaccine every year. The main reason is that those viruses, mainly the influenza viruses, which belong to the RNA virus category, they mutate very frequently and make different strains. And those strains will have might have different target proteins, so that the vaccine might not be able to identify them and attack it, or train the immune system to attack it. That may be the reason. But having said that, I would say the answer to that question, what is within our control? What is within our control is, that's all what we can do now. So what is within our control is to take the booster. Because what will happen is, if you take the booster, that will slow down, that will give the immunity. that will give the immunity to the population. And what research has shown is, regardless of the vaccine type, all the vaccines that have been approved will give adequate immunity. And that immunity will last for some time. And once that immunity is within our body, even when this infection happens, it becomes weaker. It's more like say a common cold or a flu. In that way, there's less likelihood of a rapid spread. It is only when there's rapid spread that there are more chances of having more and more strains. And when there are more and more strains, then there is a possibility of the current vaccines may not be very effective. So what is within our control is try to increase our immunity as fast as possible. The only answer within our hands is, I think, getting the booster. So I think part of the answer is within us.
Part of the answer is within us. On that note, let's take a quick peek at this evening's primetime news headlines and prepare ourselves for the primetime news at 9 o'clock, which is produced, by the way, by a wonderful team of people dedicated to delivering the news right to you. And let's see you on the other side of the break, shall we?
Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat. KDK, the leader in indoor air quality. Over 110 years in bringing you the best of Japanese innovation and technology. KDK, the reliable fan.
One disinfectant to keep your hands, home surfaces, electronic devices and personal belongings safe from bacteria, virus and fungi. Sri Lanka's first SLS certified disinfectant, now with lemon fresh and ice pine fresh fragrances. Sun all-purpose disinfectant spray.
Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat.
And welcome back to Newsline Zoom. I'm in conversation with Professor Indika Karunathilake, and I show you Professor Indika knows a thing or two about COVID-19 and all the variants and so on. Now, you know, we asked you the question before and about how does the Republic, the people, cope with this. And you said, you know, at the end of the day, we can only do our best, and that is all we can do. Strangely enough, and because I need to bring a little bit a dose of politics into this, one Joseph P. Kennedy said this to his children, that all you can do is to do your best, and thereafter, that's it. And it must have been pretty good advice, because that famous family produced so many wonderful politicians for the United States, including, of course, John F. Kennedy. I just thought I'd mention that. Now then, what I really want to also ask you is, we've had the two jabs, we've had a booster, and we are keeping our distance, we're keeping our hygiene and wearing the masks and so on. Is there anything else we need to do, or is this the best?
Yeah, I think that's
I think, sorry, yeah. The question is, how do we keep alive? That's the question.
Yeah, I think getting the booster and taking all the precautions that you have mentioned gives you a very high chance, of surviving, because that's what the data shows. Worldwide data is very conclusive that if you have taken the booster, the chances of critical or serious illnesses or the mortality is very less, very much less. So that's very much sure. However, having said that, even if you have taken the booster, even if you have taken all the precautions, still there is some possibility of you getting the disease. That's possible. Because
Professor, sorry, because we're running out of time. Professor, how do the people cope with this? What should they be doing? Are we doing something wrong apart from cleaning our hands, distance, masking? Is there something else? Should we stop going on long weekend trips? Should we stop going to Yala, Wilpattu, and all these places? Should we stop welcoming tourists to the country?
Yeah.
What should we do?
Yeah, I don't think that the country should be stopping their day-to-day activities or whatever. I mean, that is not the answer. However, people now, the answer is that we should now learn to live with this situation for a while. That this is spreading very rapidly and it might affect you also. So one thing is doing what we can, getting prepared, so on and so forth. At the same time, I think the current situation, considering the rapid spread of the disease, it would be advisable if you can avoid, to the extent possible, if you can avoid going to crowded, congested places. Those are the places where you can get the disease very easily.
Unfortunately, if you're using public transport and judging the trains, the state of the trains and the buses, that might be a little bit difficult. Because the buses are, they're all jam-packed like sardines again.
Correct.
So we need more trains and we don't have money. Cabral says we've got no dollars. How does the ordinary citizen live?
Yeah, I think the best bet would be adapting to the new normal within the limitations. I mean, of course, there are constraints. There are certain constraints that are beyond our control. So, I mean, there's nothing much we can do related to that. But at least within our limits, if we can adhere to the basic health guidelines, which you can do without much cost, and getting the booster, which you can do without any cost to yourself, those are the basic things that you can do. And secondly, there's a lot of help available. For example, even if you get the illness, if you have taken the booster, it will be very much milder. And you can get the help from, there are many resources available from the health sector, and there are voluntary helplines like SLMA 247 service, where we'll be giving you advices on what to do and what not to do. So that will help you to get an uneventful recovery. And recently, even the guidelines have been relaxed. For example, if you are fully vaccinated, then the isolation period is 1 week. If you are fully vaccinated and if you are asymptomatic, then the isolation period is 1 week. Actually, that could be very much relief for the working population also compared to a longer isolation period. So those changes are happening.
But provided that you test negative at the end of 7 days.
No, not necessary. Not necessary. The guidelines have changed. No, there's no need to do a repeat test if you are fully vaccinated. If initial PCR is positive and antigen is positive, and if you have been asymptomatic and towards the last 48 hours there is no fever, then you can get back to your slowly get back to the activities.
No, when I had it, after several days, my rapid antigen, it tested negative. So I was ready to report back to Shayan Ranatunga to come back to work. But my doctor said to me, if you like, you can do a PCR. So I liked and I spent money and I was positive. So that was astounding. And the rapid antigen was negative, the PCR was positive, and the security won't let me in the building.
Yeah. Okay. Now that's very clear. Now that is the very reason why now the health authorities are not recommending a repeat exit PCR for the patients, because for the simple reason, sometimes PCR can remain positive because it's a very sensitive test. The test can detect even a very minute amount of viral particles. Even after sometimes in some, it can be up to 2 to 3 months. But it doesn't mean that the live virus is within you. It doesn't mean that you are infectious. That's why exit PCR for asymptomatic patients is not done anymore.
Isn't that a bit sort of almost cheating? Because No.
Yeah, I don't think so. Because everyone is learning. During that time period, you may remember when initial patients identified about in 2020, sometimes the patients were kept for months and months in the hospital till the PCR was negative. But later it was identified because this is a new virus. We know it only for just 2 years. So things are evolving. Everyone is learning. So that's why we need to go by the best evidence available. The current best evidence says there is no need to do exit PCR if you are asymptomatic.
That's medical advice.
Yes.
All right. Now that we need to also ask you this question. When you do test positive, where do we go? Do we go to the camps? I stayed at home.
No. Again, now everything has changed because with the evolving situation, the health system has to adapt, the processes has to adapt. So the current situation is, if you tested positive, you need to inform the authorities, the PHI, the MOH, and also get the medical advice. Based on your symptoms, if you have, say, serious comorbid conditions, or if you have shortness of breathing, high fever that is not responding to paracetamol, or maybe severe vomiting and diarrhea, then the doctors would advise you to get admitted. That's for your own safety. That's for your own.
Professor, sorry, we're running out of time. So once you've had COVID, like I did, and you've recovered, I've noticed that I get quite tired, fatigued quite easily.
Very correct.
Is there a magic tablet for that?
Unfortunately, no magic tablet. I think the best would be, again, the basic precautions, because like immunization, that vaccination would reduce your vulnerability. And as you get the symptoms, get good rest, good hydration. That would reduce the amount of damage that can happen within the body. So early on, adhere to the medical advices, have a good rest, good hydration, good nutrition, then the chances of these post-COVID symptoms are low. But in case you get them, don't be worried, get medical advice. Unless they are due to a serious reason, that's very rare, most of them would go away within few months or so. So it's a symptomatic management. Always contact your family doctor, get advices, and you might have to live with that maybe for a few months, but after that it would be fine. Again, good rest, good hydration, good nutrition, and symptomatic management for most.
And if you're a broadcaster like me, you need to have a good relationship with your producer, Shayan, so that he'll rest you and not work you too hard and give you all the time off, which the Capital Maharaja Group have been absolutely wonderful about that. I'm doing it by Zoom now because there's some concern. Yeah. So you need to keep in touch with your, on good terms with your HR department and that sort of thing, isn't it? And avoid crowded places. But what on earth does the public do when there's a long weekend again? You know, the 4th of February is around the corner. There's a long weekend. The beaches in Mirissa and Pasikuda and so on are inviting. The palm trees are swaying. Lots of tourists there. How do we live with all that then? Are we going for a lockdown again?
I don't think so. I don't think there will be lockdown. Nobody can say for conclusively or definitely, but I hope and I believe there will not be a lockdown. Actually, we should be able to adapt to the new normal. So that is where the new normal comes into play, that we should learn to how to coexist with this situation, maybe for some time to come. So that is where, everything comes down to one word, that is adapting to the new normal situation. So how we can continue our day-to-day activities, maybe work-related, maybe leisure-related, while maintaining the basic precautions. So it all comes down to that. And also common sense also plays a big role. Whenever there is a crowded, congested place, for example, an air-conditioned crowded place carries much risk than an open-air crowded place. So it comes down to your common sense also.
To open the nearest window, if you're in a
good ventilation is very important.
Excellent. Well, Professor Indika Karunathilake, I've been delighted to have you on the program. Excellent. Thank you very much for your advisories. And at the end of the day, you can do everything. Take your jabs, your boosters, keep your distance, mask up, and wash your hands and all that. But there is also a component of ecclesiastical decisions. And so, God up there will also need to play his role and hopefully look after not only Sri Lanka, but the whole world. On that note, it's been wonderful doing this program with you, Professor Indika Karunathilake, and it's now time for the primetime news from News First, that vibrant team once again. And as always, God bless you all.